She found out we slept in the same bed on a business trip with my boss. Now I'm divorced. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd find myself posting here, but here I am, ready to share my story. My name is Ashley, and I'm 29 years old. My ex-husband Jordan is 28, and we've been together since high school. We were married for about 3 years, and I always believed he was the one I would spend the rest of my life with, until I made a huge mistake. It all started with a business trip and a night that changed everything. And I know you might be wondering how on earth that happened, so let me take you back to when things were still good, before I lost the love of my life. I remember our first date like it was yesterday. Jordan was the epitome of everything I wasn't. Charming, outgoing, and everyone's crush. He was the star on the football field, the guy everyone wanted to be friends with. I, on the other hand, was the quiet girl who preferred books to parties. I couldn't believe it when he asked me out. Why would someone like him choose someone like me? But there we were, sitting across from each other in a cozy cafe, nervous smiles and awkward small talk filling the air. Jordan made me feel comfortable from the start, and his easygoing nature put me instantly at ease. As we talked, I discovered a side of Jordan that went beyond his popular persona. He was not just handsome and smart, he was genuinely kind and funny. He shared stories about his football games, his dreams for the future, and his passion for making people smile. Despite the attention he got from everyone, he chose me that night. It wasn't just a date, it was the beginning of something special, something I thought would last a lifetime. Oh, how wrong I was. Our second date was a huge contrast to the nervous excitement that I had felt on the first. By then, Jordan and I had discovered a comfortable rhythm in each other's company. He planned a surprise picnic in the park, complete with my favorite foods and a blanket spread under the shade of a large oak tree. We just sat there and enjoyed the delicious food and the serene surroundings. I found myself falling deeper for Jordan. He was more than just the popular guy at school. He was attentive, caring, and genuinely interested in getting to know me beyond the surface. We laughed, shared childhood stories, and even talked about our dreams and aspirations. Jordan's passion for life was infectious, and I couldn't help but feel grateful that he had chosen me out of everyone. That day in the park, with the sun painting golden hues across the sky, I felt a sense of belonging with Jordan. It wasn't about his popularity or how others saw us. It was about the connection we shared, the moments of genuine happiness we found in each other's presence. Our third date was a delightful mix of adventure and laughter. Jordan surprised me by taking me to an amusement park, knowing how much I loved the thrill of roller coasters and carnival games. Jordan and I raced from one ride to another. We laughed so loud as we enjoyed every moment of the adrenaline rush. He won me a stuffed animal at a game booth, proudly presenting it to me with a grin that melted my heart. Despite the chaos in the park, we found moments of quiet intimacy, stealing kisses between rides and sharing whispered conversations about our hopes and fears. Jordan's presence was a constant source of comfort and joy. His infectious smiles could brighten even the cloudiest of days. By the end of the day, we watched the sunset from the top of the Ferris wheel. I couldn't help but feel like the luckiest person alive. Jordan's choice to be with me, despite his popularity and charm, filled me with a sense of gratitude and love that I cherished deeply. Our fourth date was a very spontaneous adventure that took us on a road trip to the countryside. Jordan surprised me with a packed picnic basket and a map filled with scenic routes, and he promised me a day of exploration and discovery. We drove through winding roads bordered by lush greenery and blooming wildflowers. I marveled at the beauty of nature and the joy of being with Jordan. His enthusiasm for life was contagious, and every pit stop was like an opportunity for laughter and shared moments. We hiked to a secluded waterfall, cooling off in its refreshing cascade and capturing memories with photos that would later fill our album. Jordan's playful antics and genuine affection made every moment feel like a scene from a romantic movie. Our picnic by the lake was very peaceful, with the sound of birdsong and the gentle lapping of water creating a serene backdrop for heartfelt conversations. Jordan opened up to me, and I shared my hopes and aspirations, deepening our bond with each shared revelation. Graduating from high school was a huge mix of excitement and nostalgia. I remember Jordan and I stood side by side, clutching our diplomas amidst cheers and applause. It felt like the end of an era and the beginning of something new, something we had been eagerly anticipating together. What made that day even more special was knowing that we were both headed to the same college. It was like we had mapped out our future, hand in hand, and built our dreams around each other. We packed our bags and said goodbye to our hometown. There was this sense of adventure and togetherness that fueled our excitement. College life was waiting for us, promising new experiences and challenges, and facing it with Jordan by my side made everything seem more manageable. Our college days were filled with shared classes, late-night study sessions, and exploring the campus hand in hand. We supported each other through exams, celebrated victories together, and found comfort in each other's company during homesick moments. After graduating from college, the next natural step for Jordan and me was to move in together. Honestly, we should have done it earlier. It was an exciting yet nerve-wracking time as we packed our belongings and set out to create a home of our own. The process of finding our first place together was filled with laughter, discussions about decor preferences, and compromises on furniture choices. We were like puzzle pieces, figuring out how to fit our lives seamlessly into a shared space. We unpacked our boxes and settled into our new home. There was this sense of joy and accomplishment that filled the air. Living together brought us even closer, as we navigated daily routines, chores, and the ups and downs of adulting side by side. We cooked meals together, binge-watched our favorite shows on lazy Sundays, and created a cozy sanctuary where we could be ourselves without any pretense. There were moments of adjustment and learning, of course, but facing them together made us stronger as a couple. We built a life together, one filled with love, laughter, and the comfort of knowing we always had each other's backs. Not too long after we graduated, life took an unexpected turn when Jordan landed a job with an impressive salary. It was a golden opportunity, one that promised financial stability and room for growth, but it wasn't a job he was passionate about. Jordan kept thinking about whether to accept the offer, and while I found myself urging him to seize the opportunity. The pay was huge, and I saw it as a chance for us to secure our future and pursue our dreams without financial difficulties. Although Jordan wasn't thrilled about the job itself, he understood the practicality of the decision. He accepted the offer, knowing it would provide us with a comfortable life and open doors for future opportunities. With Jordan's income covering our expenses and more, we made the mutual decision for me to be a stay-at-home wife. It was a choice made out of practicality, and well, the only sensible thing to do. With that, I could focus on my hobbies and desires without stress. Being a stay-at-home wife allowed me to invest time in personal projects, pursue creative outlets, and support Jordan in his career journey. Our days were filled with shared moments, from breakfast together to evening walks and weekend adventures. While the financial security was a blessing, Jordan wasn't fulfilled at his job and he absolutely hated it. I tried my best to sympathize, of course, but there wasn't much I could do. Then Jordan proposed. Jordan's proposal was a total surprise, and it happened in a simple but meaningful way. We were at this cozy cabin in the mountains, just enjoying each other's company by the fireplace. We were sipping on hot cocoa and talking about everything and nothing. Then out of nowhere, Jordan got serious and started talking about us, our journey together, and how much he loved me. It was like he couldn't hold it in anymore, and I could feel my heart racing as he spoke. Before I knew it, he was down on one knee, holding out a ring. I was so shocked and overwhelmed with emotion that I couldn't hold back the tears. It was a definite yes, followed by lots of hugs, kisses, and laughter. When we told our families about our engagement, they were over the moon with excitement. Both our families had always been so supportive and loving towards us, so seeing them happy for us was the best feeling in the world. Planning our wedding was a whirlwind of excitement, emotions, and yes, stress. From choosing the venue to picking out the perfect dress, every decision felt like it carried the weight of 1,000 expectations. At first, it was all about envisioning our dream wedding, a day that would reflect our love and commitment to each other. We spent hours browsing through ideas, debating color schemes, and creating guest lists that seemed to grow longer with each passing day. But as the planning intensified, so did the pressure. There were endless details to consider, budgets to manage, and opinions to navigate, both from within and outside our families. What started as an exciting journey was now starting to feel like a never-ending maze of choices and compromises. The stress began to seep into our relationship, testing our patience and communication skills. We found ourselves caught up in minor disagreements that felt magnified under the wedding planning spotlight. It was a roller coaster of emotions, from moments of pure joy and anticipation to bouts of frustration and exhaustion. However, we did our best to always come to an agreement. We made compromises, sought advice from trusted friends and family, and tried to focus on the bigger picture, celebrating our love and commitment surrounded by our loved ones. Our wedding day was a roller coaster of emotions, a mix of nerves, excitement, and overwhelming love. Getting ready in the morning was chaotic but filled with laughter and shared moments with my closest friends and family. Walking down the aisle towards Jordan was surreal. I could feel my heart racing, but seeing the look of pure happiness on his face made everything feel right. It was like time stood still as we exchanged vows and promises of forever. The ceremony was filled with laughter and tears, with our loved ones cheering us on as we officially became husband and wife. The reception was a blast, with dancing, toasts, and lots of delicious food and drinks. Every little detail from the decorations to the music playlist reflected us as a couple. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about celebrating our love with the people who mattered most to us. In the end, our wedding day was everything we had hoped for and more. The stress and challenges of planning faded away the moment we exchanged our vows, surrounded by the people who mattered most to us. Our honeymoon was a much-needed escape, a chance to unwind and bask in the glow of newlywed bliss. We chose a tropical destination with sun-kissed beaches and crystal-clear waters, the perfect backdrop for relaxation and romance. We lounged on the beaches, sipped cocktails, and explored the local sights. The stress of wedding planning melted away. It was a time for us to disconnect from the outside world and focus solely on each other. Our days were filled with leisurely walks along the shoreline, exhilarating water sports, and indulgent spa treatments. We laughed, we danced, and we made memories that would last a lifetime. But even amidst the paradise of our honeymoon, there was a subtle shift in our mindset. We talked about our future together, our dreams and aspirations, and what we hoped to achieve as a married couple. It was a time for reflection and planning, setting the foundation for our life together beyond the honeymoon bliss. When we returned home, we settled into our life as a married couple with a newfound sense of unity and purpose. We unpacked our bags, framed honeymoon photos, and returned to our daily routines with a renewed sense of appreciation for each other. In the beginning, being a stay-at-home wife was like a dream come true. I relished the freedom and flexibility it offered, the ability to indulge in my hobbies and interests without the constraints of a typical 9-to-5 job. Our home was like my sanctuary, a place where I could immerse myself in activities that brought me joy. Since we didn't have children yet, the house was always peaceful and quiet. I could set my own schedule, whether it was dedicating time to my art projects, diving into a good book, or simply enjoying moments of peace, quietness, and relaxation. I loved having the whole day to myself, with no rush or pressure to meet deadlines or commute to work. It allowed me to explore new hobbies, improve my skills, and savor the simple pleasures of daily life. The freedom to do whatever I wanted was liberating, and I found fulfillment in nurturing our home and creating a comfortable environment for Jordan to come back to after a long day at work. However, as I'm sure you've probably already guessed, as time went on, the initial excitement of being a stay-at-home wife began to fade, and was now replaced by a sense of boredom and restlessness. What once felt like a dream come true now felt like a monotonous and continuous routine that left me feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. The quiet and peacefulness of our home, which I once cherished, now felt suffocating. The absence of children meant there were long stretches of time with no one to interact with but myself. The hobbies and activities that used to bring me joy started to lose their appeal, and they started becoming repetitive and uninspiring. It was like every day was now blurring and blending into the next. I longed for the stimulation of a challenging job, the camaraderie of coworkers, and the sense of accomplishment that comes with professional growth. I found myself craving purpose and meaningful engagement outside the confines of our home. The lack of structure and routine started to take a toll on my mental well-being. I felt isolated and disconnected from the world outside, yearning for social interactions and a sense of belonging beyond the walls of our house. My relationship with Jordan also felt the strain of my growing dissatisfaction. I struggled to express my feelings. I was scared that expressing my unhappiness would disappoint him or seem ungrateful for the opportunities that he had given me. As the days passed, the boredom turned into resentment, and I realized that being a stay-at-home wife was not fulfilling the way I had hoped. As an introvert, I've always treasured the quiet moments and deep connections with a few close friends. Jordan, my husband, is the complete opposite, a charismatic extrovert who thrives in social settings and has a vast network of friends. Growing up, I was content with my small circle of friends. I enjoyed meaningful conversations and valued quality over quantity when it came to social interactions. Jordan, on the other hand, effortlessly made friends wherever he went. His outgoing nature and ability to connect with people made him the life of the party. While our differing social styles never posed a problem in our relationship, being an introvert and a stay-at-home wife was very boring. I didn't have any friends to go out with or anyone to really invite me anywhere, well, except family, of course, but still I wanted my own friends. And so as time passed, I couldn't help but feel a growing resentment towards Jordan for a couple of reasons that seemed to highlight our differences starkly. Firstly, Jordan's knack for making friends effortlessly contrasted sharply with my own struggles in that area. He was outgoing and social, easily striking up conversations and forming connections wherever he went. In contrast, as someone who tended to be more introverted, making friends didn't come as naturally to me, and I often felt left out or disconnected. Secondly, the dynamics of being a stay-at-home wife intensified my feelings of resentment. While Jordan had the freedom to leave the house for work or social outings, I often felt stuck in the same routine day after day. The lack of variety and social interaction left me feeling trapped and unfulfilled. And occasionally I would visit family members for a change of scenery, but even those outings started to feel mundane and uninspiring. The monotony of being at home without much external stimulation or opportunities to connect with others made me long for a sense of freedom and independence. I yearned for the chance to explore new places, meet new people, and have experiences outside the confines of our home, and the fact that Jordan had all these opportunities that I didn't made me resent him. And so for almost 2 years after we tied the knot, the routine of being a stay-at-home wife wore me down. It felt like I was stuck in a loop, doing the same things day in and day out. I couldn't ignore the boredom and longing for something more. One day, I mustered the courage to talk to Jordan about how I was feeling. I told him straight up that I was tired of the routine and wanted to get a job. To my surprise, he listened and understood where I was coming from. He was a bit surprised but supportive of my decision. So I started looking for job opportunities. It was a mix of excitement and nervousness. I hadn't been in the workforce for a while, and the thought of starting something new was both thrilling and daunting. But I was determined to find a job that would give me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. I scrolled through job listings, updated my resume, and prepared for interviews. I felt a glimmer of hope and excitement. It was a fresh start, a chance to break free from the monotony and get some excitement in my life. After a diligent search, I landed a job that I really liked. The only downside was that it required some travel. Not excessively, but enough to make Jordan uneasy. In that moment, however, I brushed aside his concerns. I felt like I had been cooped up at home for so long as a stay-at-home wife that a bit of travel now and then would give us both some breathing room. I knew Jordan wouldn't be thrilled about the travel aspect, but I was determined to pursue this opportunity regardless. It felt like a chance for me to reclaim a bit of independence and space, something I had been craving after years of being closely tied to our home and routine. When I told Jordan about the job and its travel requirements, he wasn't happy. He expressed his concerns about being apart and the strain it might put on our relationship. However, in that moment, I was selfish. I countered his concerns by emphasizing how much I wanted this job and that I was willing to stay firm in my decision, despite his reservations. To ease his worries and address the imbalance in our financial responsibilities, I proposed taking on some of the bills. While my salary wasn't as high as Jordan's, I was willing to contribute a fair percentage to help shoulder the financial load. It was a way for me to show that I was committed to making this work, and that I valued the opportunity to contribute in more ways than one. Looking back, I realized that I might have been too focused on my own desires and not sensitive enough to Jordan's concerns. I had been very selfish, and it had cost me my marriage. As I settled into my new job, I really liked it. My boss was super friendly, maybe a bit too friendly. He'd often bring me coffee and snacks, which surprised me considering he was my boss, even compliment me, and engage in harmless flirting. At first, I thought it was just his way of being nice, but over time, it started to feel a bit off. I tried to convince myself that it was all innocent and that I was overreacting. Plus, I enjoyed the attention, so I didn't complain. I brushed off his behavior, thinking it was just harmless banter. But deep down, I knew there was something not quite right about it. As time went on, I continued to downplay my boss's behavior, convincing myself that it was all harmless and that I could handle it. I ignored the subtle signs that something was off and tried to focus on the positives of my job. However, things took a turn when our company hosted a work event, and I brought Jordan along as my date. Throughout the evening, my boss's behavior towards me became a bit weird. He was overly nice, constantly seeking my attention, and his behavior crossed the line of professionalism, especially considering he had brought his wife to the event. Jordan, being observant as always, noticed the way my boss was acting and expressed his discomfort during the ride home. He voiced his concerns about my boss's behavior and how it made him feel uneasy. However, I brushed off his concerns, attributing my boss's behavior to his friendly personality and the festive atmosphere of the event. Looking back, I realized that I was too focused on downplaying the situation and maintaining a sense of normalcy. I didn't want to acknowledge the underlying discomfort or address the implications of my boss's actions. It was a mistake to brush off Jordan's concerns, and I failed to see the potential consequences of ignoring the red flags. As usual, when the time came for a work trip with my boss, I informed Jordan, packed my bags, and met up with my boss for the journey. Typically, these trips involved a group of co-workers, but this time it was just me and my boss. Upon arriving at the hotel, my boss made an unexpected suggestion. He wanted us to book the same hotel room to save money. It caught me off guard because the company usually covered these expenses separately for each employee. However, my boss presented the idea in such a friendly and persuasive manner that I found it hard to refuse. Despite my initial surprise and discomfort with the suggestion, I caved in. Part of it was due to my boss's convincing demeanor, but I also couldn't deny that I had developed a bit of a crush on him. It clouded my judgment, and I agreed to share the hotel room with him to cut costs, overlooking how stupid and irresponsible making such a decision was, especially considering we were both married. After booking the same hotel room to save costs, my boss and I settled in for the night. We decided to go out and explore a bit, enjoying the sights and sounds of the new city. As the evening wore on, we returned to the hotel to rest. When it came time to sleep, I suggested taking the couch to maintain some level of comfort and boundaries. However, my boss insisted that it was no trouble at all to share the bed, and that he would be more comfortable taking the couch instead. Despite my initial hesitation, I ultimately agreed to sleep in the same bed as him, trusting his assurance that it was all in good faith. As we settled in for the night, I tried to push aside any lingering doubts or concerns. My boss had always been friendly and respectful, and I convinced myself that sharing a bed was simply a matter of convenience and practicality. And as you might have already guessed, things took a turn that night, and my boss and I ended up being intimate. I had always harbored a bit of a crush on my boss, which played a role in my decision-making. However, the next morning brought a wave of shock and horror as reality set in. I realized that I had just cheated on my husband, and what's worse, I wasn't under the influence of alcohol or any external factor. It was purely my desire for my boss that clouded my judgment and made me stupid. I was filled with a profound sense of horror and regret. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, knowing that I had broken the sacred vows of my marriage. The thought of facing my husband and confessing to my infidelity sent shivers down my spine. I wrestled with the dilemma of whether to tell him or not. I knew that cheating was a non-negotiable deal-breaker for him, and the mere thought of losing him over my mistake was unbearable. I talked to my boss and told him about the immense regret I felt and how I never wanted anything like that to happen again. To my relief, he accepted and understood and assured me that he would keep our encounter a secret. Knowing that my boss wouldn't divulge what happened brought a fleeting sense of relief, but it also deepened my resolve to hide the truth from my husband. I was torn between the guilt of my betrayal and the fear of losing the person I loved the most. Looking back, I realized the gravity of my mistake and the consequences of ignoring my husband's warnings about my boss. I should have listened to him. When I got back home from the work trip, I carried this heavy guilt with me. I put on a front, acting like everything was fine, hoping my husband wouldn't catch on to the truth. I made up stories to cover up what really happened, trying to make it seem like the trip was uneventful. I avoided any topics that might lead to the truth coming out, burying my guilt deep down. Every time I talked to my husband, it felt like I was putting on a show. I forced smiles, pretended to be happy, and acted like nothing had changed when inside I was falling apart. The guilt kept weighing on me, making me constantly worried that my secret would slip out. I knew that if my husband found out, it would destroy everything we had. Despite my efforts to hide the truth and act like everything was normal, the guilt and shame ate away at me, a constant reminder of the mistake I made and the trust I broke. The weight of my guilt became unbearable. It was eating away at me day and night. Unable to carry the burden alone, I reached out to my sister, confiding in her about what had happened during the work trip. We chatted online and I poured out my heart, admitting the truth I had been hiding. To my surprise, my sister was understanding and supportive. She consoled me, assuring me that I had made the right decision by not telling my husband. She believed that he wouldn't have forgiven me, and hearing that gave me a sense of temporary relief. With my sister's words echoing in my mind, I started to convince myself that what happened was in the past, and that dwelling on it would only make things worse. I chose to push aside my guilt and stop caring about the mistake I had made. After all, my husband would never find out, and as long as he never found out, I could move on from the issue and everything would be fine. However, in my haste to move on and bury the past, I forgot to clear the messages from our conversation. It was a careless oversight that would later come back to haunt me in ways I never imagined. In an effort to ensure that I never repeated the same mistake again, I made a drastic decision. I quit my job on short notice. It was a sudden and unexpected move, but one that I felt was necessary to distance myself from the temptation and potential for further indiscretions. When I told my husband about my decision, he was shocked. It was clear that he hadn't seen it coming, but to my relief, he supported me. He knew me well enough to understand that I could be unpredictable at times, especially when it came to making major life choices. Quitting my job was a way for me to remove myself from the situation that led to my mistake. I needed a fresh start, a clean slate to rebuild trust with my husband and focus on repairing our relationship. As I tried to refocus on my husband and our relationship, hoping to repair the damage caused by my mistake, a sudden and devastating revelation shattered everything. One evening, my husband came home in a terrible mood. I could tell something was wrong, but he didn't want to talk about it. I cooked dinner, hoping it would help lighten the mood, and called him down to eat. As we sat at the table, tension hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Then out of nowhere, my husband dropped a bombshell. He told me he wanted a divorce. I was stunned, unable to process what I was hearing. I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking, but the seriousness in his voice told me otherwise. I asked him what he meant, desperate for an explanation. That's when he revealed that he knew about the fact that I had cheated on him with my boss. The shock hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me as the truth came crashing down. I had betrayed my husband, and now that I was facing the consequences, I realized the gravity of my mistake and the irreparable damage it had caused to our marriage. I had thought that I could hide the truth, but I guess nothing is hidden forever. Tears started welling up in my eyes and I started crying. I was now begging for his forgiveness. I kept repeating that it was a one-time mistake and that I would never do it again. But he remained silent. He didn't say a word, but he looked so hurt and disappointed. I poured my heart out, apologizing profusely and promising to make things right. But he didn't respond, just sat there processing everything. Then he got up without a word and went to our bedroom. My heart raced with fear as I waited for him to return. When he came back, he had printouts of the conversation I had with my sister, the one where I spilled all about my affair and my guilt. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. There was no denying it now, no more hiding or excuses. The truth was out, and I had to face the consequences of my actions head on. It was a painful realization that I had shattered the trust and love we once shared. No amount of apologies could undo the hurt I had caused. Jordan didn't hold back. He was so hurt and disappointed. He called me foolish and cruel for planning to keep my affair a secret and never confessing. He said it was downright cruel to deceive him and hide such a significant betrayal. He didn't mince words, telling me straight up that I was also foolish for not heeding his warnings about my boss. He had seen the signs, tried to protect me, but I ignored him and fell into temptation. His honesty stung as he laid bare his feelings of disappointment and hurt. He reminded me of all the effort he had put into our relationship, giving his best while I threw it all away with my infidelity. He questioned why I couldn't appreciate what I had and why I had to seek something outside of our marriage. He made it clear that forgiveness was out of the question. He said he would give me a few hours at most to pack my things, and he said that he was unable to bear being in the same space with me after such a betrayal. He didn't stop at just telling me we were getting a divorce. Jordan made it clear that I wasn't to bother taking my car because he had bought it for me. It stung a lot, and his words cut deep when he also mentioned taking my name off the lease. It wasn't a surprise considering he earned well and had always been the one paying the rent during our years together, especially when I was a stay-at-home wife. Jordan had talked about buying a house not long after we moved into this apartment. He was ready for that next step, but I kept putting it off as I kept clinging to some sentimental attachment to our current place. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I called my sister for help. She rushed over, concerned for me and the sudden upheaval in my life. I confided in her about what happened. I was hoping for some support and maybe even a plea to Jordan on my behalf. My sister tried to reason with Jordan, asking him to forgive me, emphasizing that it was a one-time mistake and that I deeply regretted it. But Jordan remained stubborn, refusing to listen to reason. He told my sister that one moment of weakness was enough to shatter everything, and he criticized her for advising me to hide the truth from him. It became clear that we wouldn't change his mind. With heavy hearts, my sister and I packed up my belongings and left in her car, leaving behind the life I had known with Jordan, all because I made a one-time mistake. I had to leave my shattered marriage behind, so I moved in with my sister for a place of solace and support. We turned to my parents for help, hoping they could sway Jordan's decision, but his heart remained closed and he didn't want to listen. He made it clear that his love for me had died the moment he learned of my betrayal. Adding salt to the wound, Jordan's family rejected any notion of reconciliation. His brother took it upon himself to message me. He accused me of being ungrateful and claimed that I would never change my ways. He said, "Once a cheater, always a cheater." The words hurt a lot, to be honest, as they reminded me of my actions. The situation was made even more challenging by the fact that I had quit my job. I had nothing to occupy my mind and distract me from the pain. It felt like my world was crumbling, and I desperately needed a sense of purpose. Financially, I was on shaky ground too. Jordan had withdrawn almost all our savings, leaving me with a meager amount to survive on. I was now reminded about the huge difference between me and Jordan financially. He had always been a saver, while I tended to spend more freely. I realized I needed to find a job quickly to support myself and start rebuilding my life from scratch. Within a few short weeks, the harsh reality of our shattered marriage hit home as Jordan sent over the divorce papers. Despite my sister's advice to draw out the process in hopes of a reconciliation and that Jordan might forgive me, but I knew deep down that Jordan's stubbornness ran deep. He wouldn't budge from his decision, and dragging things out would only prolong the pain. So despite the emotional pain I felt, I made the difficult choice to sign the papers and send them back. It was a bitter pill to swallow, accepting the end of our relationship so abruptly. The divorce was finalized swiftly. I didn't receive much from the settlement, not even alimony. My infidelity had put me in a vulnerable position, and the legal system didn't favor my side of the story at all. I had lost so much, all because of a tiny crush and a one-time mistake. I wish I could go back in time and change everything, but if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. I did, however, do one petty thing. I searched for my boss on Facebook, found his wife from there and messaged her, and then informed her about her husband cheating. I felt she deserved to know. And also, well, there was no way I would be the only one on the losing end here. So I guess thanks for listening, Reddit. That's my story.